Ah yes, 80s movies, when the actors were chock full of steroids and everything was about explosions, muscles, action, helicopters.
Get to the chopper!
And great one-liners.
The CIA got you pushing too many pencils? Stick around.
However, in spite of all of the cliches of the decade, two movies released in 1987 managed to exceed all expectations, and in spite of having dumb names and seemingly basic plots, turned out to be smart, subtle movies.
I'd buy that for $1.
One of them was Predator, that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie with the reggae alien.
Yeah, man.
The other one is RoboCop, a movie that turned out to be, dare I say, prophetic.
What are your prime directives?
Your move, creep. You have the right to remain silent.
The future of law enforcement. RoboCop.
Thank you for your cooperation.
I've been fascinated by this film ever since I was a little kid. So much so that my parents were forced to buy me this RoboCop figurine for Christmas because I wouldn't shut up about it. I still have it, by the way, but neither myself nor my parents realized what a violent, cynical, and so not-for-kids film was behind this very innocent name. Directed by Paul Verhoeven, the crazy Dutch filmmaker who really wanted to pull Hollywood's leg, this film surprises you even to this day with its subtlety, with its sound design, and with that epic soundtrack which I cannot use in this video but I can sing for you.
Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
I can't get over how great this design is. It's simple, yet futuristic, and it's perfect for the city that was once the car capital of the world. And I love how the film first introduces RoboCop to its audience. You get a small teaser of what Alex Murphy sees as he's revived and turned into a machine. And then you get teased with the suit here and there, and then finally, when it's time for the RoboCopper to be unleashed, there's no press event, ribbon cutting, or fireworks. It's just a chaotic police precinct that suddenly grinds to a halt as everyone hears the robot for the first time with that epic sound design. Then RoboCop gets his car keys. And by the way, it took them 50 takes and a full day of filming to get this shot, as the suit's rubber gloves made it very difficult for the actor to actually catch those keys like that. And off he goes.
Da-da-da-da.
But the most important part of this suit is the helmet, which is a metaphor for Alex Murphy's humanity, or lack thereof. At first, the helmet hides his eyes completely. You don't even know if he still has them anymore. He just looks, moves, and sounds like a soulless robot. There's even a lot of robotic effects on his voice as first to make him sound like a machine.
Drop it!
Then, as he fights Ed 209, you know, that weird robot with chicken legs. He gets his helmet broken, and not only do we see Alex Murphy's real eye, but we see that he's scared. He has feelings. He isn't just a robot. He's a confused individual who doesn't know who he is, who he was. All he knows is that he must survive. And so he gets away from Ed, and the clumsy bastard trips and falls down the stairs and cries like Miss Piggy. Then later on, he takes his helmet off completely. We see his face for the first time, and we realize that he's living a nightmare, having bits and pieces of feelings and memories which he cannot connect.
Murphy had a wife and son. What happened to them? I can feel them, but I can't remember them.
Notice how his voice stopped being robotic. Then, in the final scene, spoiler alert, when the O.C.P. CEO asks him his name, he smiles and says,
Murphy.
The film was released in 1987, but the story happens in the future. Not only did the film predict simple gadgets like GPS navigation, the DVD, USB drives, digital realtors, or the idea of the police robot itself.
The robot will patrol the busiest subway station in the transit system.
But more importantly, it predicted a cynical and depressing future where corporations rule the country and control the military industry while the news anchors present tragic stories about armed conflicts with a smile on their face, and right after they cut to a commercial like it's nothing.
More fighting in the Mexican crisis today. Now this.
It's back. Big is back, because bigger is better.
The old fear and consumption thing Marilyn Manson was talking about 20 years ago.
You're watching the news, you're being pumped full of fear, cut to commercial, buy the Acura, buy the Colgate. It's a campaign of fear and consumption.
Nowadays, Marilyn has other things to worry about, though.
Da-da-da-da.
The dystopic future kinda came true, especially in America and especially in Detroit. But we don't do politics here, so let's talk about their cynical predictions of where the entertainment industry was headed and how true it turned out to be. This commercial shows an entire family laughing while playing a game about a nuclear war. Now think about all the video games that were released after.
Nuke 'em. Get them before they get you.
Red alert. Red alert.
Of course, they were parodying board games. They had no idea technology would advance so fast that 30 years later, kids would play an actual RoboCop video game. But the idea itself that society would end up turning war into children's entertainment really ended up being true. But they didn't predict just games. They basically predicted the TikTok era. Of course, they didn't predict the app itself, but just this idea that we'd all end up glued to our screens, consuming the same low-effort, repetitive entertainment.
I'd buy that for $1. Boy. I'd buy that for $1.
And another way in which this movie was ahead of its time was Murphy's partner Lewis, who wasn't just a hot bimbo whose purpose was to be the main character's love interest. She was a strong, independent, brave woman with short hair and who fought alongside our favorite robot. And just like he did in his later film Starship Troopers, our Dutch bro showed a future where men and women were sharing locker rooms and showers. And while that concept might not be that crazy today, it was definitely very taboo in 80s America, where you couldn't even get away with too much cleavage on national TV. And that's the whole point of this film. If you're watching it today, you have to always remind yourself that this was made in the 80s, and the things it was portraying as the future of society were way too close to today's reality. The story of Alex Murphy is of a modern-day Jesus. He's killed by haters in a very violent fashion. He basically dies for Detroit's sins, as he ends up in that situation because of the corrupt bureaucracy of that failed city.
What brings you to this little paradise?
Beats me, man. I think O.C.P's moving a lot of new guys up here.
Then he miraculously comes back from the dead, walks on water, exacts his revenge on his killers, and then finds his humanity again. I also love how in the end, Alex Murphy finally feels like a good cop, as he can finally pull off the gun-spinning move from his son's favorite show.
My son Jimmy watches this cop show, DJ Laser, and this laser guy does this every time he takes down a bad guy, so naturally my kid thinks every good cop should be.
And you don't want to disappoint him.
The film, however, isn't perfect. It has pretty bad dialogue, and the chemistry between the main characters is seriously awkward. I can't help but think that maybe it's because Paul Verhoeven didn't really know English that well, and it was hard for him to direct the actors properly and work with them on their lines. The interactions between Murphy and Lewis are very cold. You don't feel any connection or chemistry between them. And then when he takes off his helmet, and it's a very important scene for the film, he just blows her off and there's nothing else there to further strengthen their camaraderie.
Leave me alone.
Now I understand that the point of the film is that the main character is a robot, and Lewis is there as his partner, not as his lover or BFF. But if the main theme of the film is that Alex Murphy finds his humanity again after being turned into a machine, surely you need to feel more of a connection between him and others around him. And there's no point in having a trusting partner if they're not going to bond in any way, and if things will just be cold and awkward between them. Also, the action sequences haven't aged well. Ed 209 and its stop-motion movement really don't look good. I know there's a nostalgic charm to seeing those animations on screen. It certainly took a lot of time and talent to make them happen. And I know some people claim that stop-motion helps the movement look even more robotic. But come on, and how about Dick Jones's hands? I know it's unfair to judge an 80s sci-fi movie for its dated visual effects, but considering 2001 was released 2 decades earlier and still looks decent, I think it's fair to at least address this. But aside from the lack of chemistry and the action sequences that have aged like a banana, I really think this film was groundbreaking when it was released, with a cynical and prophetic view of where society was headed, a great story about finding your humanity, and it's definitely worth a rewatch if you haven't seen it in years. Just don't bother with the bad sequel, horrendous third part, useless TV show, or forgettable 2014 remake.